I'm Joyce Hornady. You might say accuracy is my business. I make bullets.
You are listening to the Hornady Podcast.
Thanks for joining us and enjoy the show.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Hornady Podcast. I'm your host, Seth Swerzik, and today, another great panel. At the table, I have marketeer Matt Ritchie and new employee Tom Busch. Guys, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah. Hey, glad to be back, Seth.
And it's a great time to be back because it is in the heart of shooting season. And, you know, some people down in the South, they get to shoot year round. And some of us have to wait for things to thaw out a little bit. And things are thawing out. Things are getting warmer. And, you know, the action shooting sports, whether that be 3-gun, USPSA, IDPA, PRS, NRL Hunter, it's going on right now. And as much as we talk about it, we don't get to compete near as much as we want to. But it's still fun to do. And you guys are intimately involved in the shooting sports. Matt, you are the shooting sports manager for Hornady, among other things. And Tom, I mentioned you're a new employee because you are now the range manager for a huge public shooting park. And I want to talk about that a little bit because we mentioned it on an episode prior to this, but the Heartland Public Shooting Park is I'm going to call it a jewel out here on the prairie. And you have to travel a significant amount of miles. I mean, we're talking 4, 5, 6, 7 hours on the road to get to a facility that has all of the amenities that the Heartland Public Shooting Park has. Now, this park is owned by the city of Grand Island, but now it is managed by Hornady. And we're going to take it to the next level with your help. And we brought you on as a Hornady employee to manage that park. So let's talk about those amenities and what your role is at the Heartland Public Shooting Park.
So the amenities, we've got sporting clay. We've got a 1 mile loop sporting clay. It's got 20 stations on it. So we've got a red course and a green course. So red course is your more competitive. If you'd like to really compete in the sporting clay stuff, that's where you want to be. If you're just want to go out and try to hit clays, then you want to be on the green course.
That's where I shoot.
Right. That's where I shoot too. Skeet, we've got, what do we got? Nine skeet fields. We've got trap fields. We've got international bunker, which is the only one for, miles and miles. I think Colorado might have one on the other side of the slope, but Iowa, Kansas, Oklahoma, maybe. South Dakota doesn't have one. We've got 12 action bays, and we've got the public side, so we can shoot out to 600 on the public and host some events like the Area 3 Championship, which we've done for, I don't know how many years in a row now.
Long time.
Yeah. And then the Zombies in the Heartland, the Hornady match, the 3-gun match coming up here in about a month.
Yeah. And not to mention, you've got the RV facilities, you got the fishing pond, you've got areas to train dogs. And then you also host not just those type of shooting competitions, but you bring in 4-H shooting nationals.
Yeah, we've had 4-H nationals for a number of years. We're slated to have them through 2026. We've been working with Steve Pritchard. He's the national coordinator for that. He's based out of Lincoln, and he's wanted to extend our contract out to 2030.
Awesome. Well, it makes plenty of sense to do that with such an amazing facility, and bringing you in as a manager. You can't just throw somebody in there who doesn't know what they're doing. So you've got a long track record in not just with this specific facility, but also just in ranges throughout. A career in the military, career in law enforcement. You've been active on a shooting range for a very long time.
Did the military thing for a number of years, law enforcement for 15. Been shooting competitively since probably about 2015. When I first started shooting, when I first started the competitive side, I didn't have a whole lot of money to compete with, so the vast majority of the matches I went to, I worked. So got to know the people at the ranges and their inner workings and work with match directors and range masters all across the country, and been volunteering out here since about 2010, 2012. So yeah, we know the park inside and out.
Excellent. And Matt, you came on board with Hornady almost a decade ago now, and immediately got involved in different shooting sports. I know bench rest, now the PRS, NRL Hunter, getting into the 3-gun side of things. And you also head up our shooting sports program. Well, our sponsored shooters, and we're the title sponsor for the Precision Rifle Series. We do a ton of sponsorships with the NRL Hunter and all of the action sports stuff. And that's got to be a big size of your plate of stuff to do every day.
Yeah, we're very, very active in that space as far as making sure that our product is, especially what I try to do is make sure we've got our product on the price table. So those guys, especially the up and coming shooters that are just getting into it, that aren't the top, 50 guys that are going to have a good crack at a good prize on the prize table at least. And not to take away from anything of our stuff, but most of the top guys have already got their reloading equipment. They've already got scales and stuff like that. So for me, the joy in it, and at least what I see, the practicality of our prizes is helping those new shooters that don't have a high-end scale or don't have a good reloading press. They can take that stuff and go and use it.
Well, it's great to be active there, and the crop of shooters is just incredible. We talked about this here not that long ago, where if I look at my performance at a 2-day national level PRS match right now, my performance would have won matches in 2013-14 when I first started shooting. But the level of competition has slowly creeped up to now. Man, they are the group of shooters that we have in all sports is just quite simply incredible. And we definitely want to be involved. And before we dive into today's topic, it's an important note. If you're listening and you are not actively engaged in a shooting sport, I can almost guarantee you there is a club, there is a range, there is something that is doable for you from a location standpoint, from a cost standpoint, from an enjoyment standpoint, whether that be, an action sport with pistol or 3-gun or into the long range side of things, there's something there for you. If it's 4 people in a hayfield that are trying to compete for the smallest group, there is something competitive to do for you. And the competitive nature, I think, of humans, it just comes out, and it's fun to involve the sports that you're passionate about with shooting on the competitive side, and it increases your skill level.
When hunting the wild, challenges abound. Leave nothing to chance. 7mm PRC from Hornady.
Yeah, what you said, it's fun. And that's Jason. Jason always says it. We sell fun. And this, there's no reason to not be out there having fun.
Exactly. So take that as, if you're not already competing, this, being your instigator right here. Get out there, start competing. It's a blast. And the community, you'll not find a better community. The people that are abrasive, they quickly get washed out of the community, and you won't see those folks at every match because it's not fun for them. So great community to get involved in. Now, let's get into today's topic, which I don't know what we're going to call this, but just some rules of the range, because you guys have been on many, many ranges, many times. Tom, you now manage a range and you see some things. And so, growing up, for me, going to the range meant going to what we call the meadow, which is 3 80-acre hayfields together. And, you put up your targets at whatever range and you go to shooting. That was it. There was no range. It was hayfields. But that's not the case for everybody. And that's not the case for me now. Now we go to these public ranges or some of these bigger private ranges, and there's just some rules. Now, we talked about this before recording. There are, yes, rules like, as the Marine Corps taught us, treat, never, keep, the, the 4 weapon safety rules. And that's not what this podcast is for. I want to go over some of those rules that are maybe insinuated, but not a like, oh, you don't point your weapon at anything you do not intend to destroy kind of thing. I mean like those nuanced rules, because you see a lot of things where you're like, come on, guys, this is not how this works. So let's lay them out there for the new guy that, maybe has a really nice public range at their location, like in this case, the Heartland Public Shooting Park, but they feel maybe some apprehension about going out because they don't know how things work. So let's walk through how things work and what you should do. So let's start off with number 1, which we have is check in. Go to the range and check in with somebody.
Right. So like with us, I mean, we catch a lot of new shooters. Like they're very apprehensive. They'll come down that asphalt road, and then when we go to the gravel where it tees at the trap, houses there and the skeet houses, they stop. They're like, we didn't know where to go. That's fine. Just ask. And so you got to find a check-in station where usually somebody's got a clubhouse or a main office, whatever they call it, pro shop.
Mm-hmm.
You got to check in with them to see what ranges are available. And then that's where they'll take your money. I mean, unfortunately we have to pay to play in order to keep the park open. We've got to charge money to upkeep the facility. So if you want to shoot shotgun, you go check in. They'll put you on a shotgun field. They'll give you a card, long range card, or whatever system you use for your shotgun stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Rifle range. And a lot of times, like our staff and Cameo does a great job of this. They vet folks that come in if they're not a regular. They're like, "Hey, have you ever shot here before?" No. Okay. Here's a set of rules, or here's our liability waiver. Have you shot here before? Yes. Do you understand the rules? Yes. Do you know where you're going? So those guys will help lay you out. So that front office, they really do a pretty good job of sorting people and sending them where they got to go. Perfect. If you don't know where the front office is, look for somebody that's in a bright colored shirt. That's usually range staff.
Yep.
Or a hat.
You see 3 or 4 people walking around with all the same clothing on. They're
that's
probably
your
staff.
indicator. That's probably range staff, and they'll point you in the right direction.
And that's an important note that seems like, at face value, no kidding, check in. But it's an important liability risk. If you show up at a range and there are other people there, you don't know which ranges are open, which ranges are closed, if there's people downrange at certain ranges. So check in with somebody, make your presence known, get in the right spot so everybody can be safe and enjoy what they're doing. All right, so moving on to number 2, which again is kind of at face value. Yeah, of course, we have observe and follow the written rules. And, again, it sounds like, follow the rules. Well, how many people get a waiver? Oh, yeah, I'll sign the bottom. Here you go. I've been to a bunch of ranges. I know what's going on. And they don't read through those rules. And if they do, maybe they don't follow them. And one of the things that came to mind with this and why it's number 2 is I've been guilty of it, but especially in the long range sports, in the action sports where you're shooting targets close up, I've really never seen this, but on the long range game, I see people without eye protection. And that's something that it's usually written in the rules or up on a rule board. But you guys see a lot of that, people just kind of glossing over the waiver and they sign the bottom.
We see that, or we see kids show up. They're bringing the kids out, and these kids might not even be old enough to be involved in the sports yet, but they're out there as a family. Mom and dad will have eyes and ears on, but then you look over and little Johnny doesn't have eye protection or ear protection on. Like we got to make sure that those guys are following the rules too if they're out there. I mean, that's probably the biggest one. That's if you want to be able to hear. I'm 44 years old and I have hearing aids, so, and that's from a lifetime of shooting military long before the competitive sports stuff where we didn't run around with hearing protection all the time. About the only time we wore it was when we were out on the rifle range. So
right.
Yeah, I mean, and just being courteous of those rules. Like, I feel like you get the local guys that are, I've been here 100 times, and they're, I know what's going on. I know what I can bend those rules a little bit, but man, just you're setting the example for anybody visiting, right?
Well, and we love having these ranges all over the country, and I'm guessing there's some insurance and some liability there. And if you want these ranges to stay open, they need to be a safe environment. Just observe, follow the rules that are written, and educate yourself with protocols, how things work, and don't be afraid to say something respectfully to people that maybe aren't conforming to what's required of them.
Absolutely.
This one, number 3 here, it kind of relates to every one of these rules at some level, and we didn't have the right words to say other than don't be that guy.
Well, we had words. We just
yeah.
Try to keep it a little bit cleaner on the podcast.
Yeah, as a family-friendly podcast, don't be that guy. And we've all got stories of that guy, and that could mean a lot of things, a lot of different things. But Matt, you just returned home from a awesome match in Colorado, and there was some guy being that guy with range equipment. You tell that story.
Yeah, I mean, the place we were at, it's a
huge
What they say,
shooting
it's
park.
huge.
It's 2,000 acres.
It's
It's a
2,000
4.5
acre.
mile
Yep.
firing line for the PRS match.
Yeah. So they provide side-by-sides for everybody, 2 per squad. And, so everybody can, ride in them, and you're not walking that 4.5 miles from one end of the range to the other. And so, be respectful of that equipment that's provided for you. The instance I saw was, end of day one, we're in the parking lot, get done. Everybody's trying to unload their stuff and get in their vehicles so they can get out of there because it's been a long day on the range, right?
Mhm.
And, seen a guy horsing around on said side-by-side in the parking lot trying to, fishtail around corners and things like that. And it's like, if that was your equipment, right, more power to you. Obviously, probably not the right place or time for horsing around, but it's not your place and it's not your equipment. So being respectful of that stuff. And to me, it was just a huge,
lowbrow.
Come on, man, really?
You're being that guy.
Yeah, you're being that guy. So
Lazy, not wanting to walk down range, change target, so you shoot the clips off what's holding your target on. Shooting props, like stuff like that. Picking up hauls after yourself.
Oh, that's a big one, is clean up after yourself. Don't be that guy.
Yeah.
Did you know that Hornady has a full line of reloading tools and equipment? Whether you're brand new to the reloading game or a seasoned veteran, we have tools that will work awesome with your setup. Check out all of Hornady's reloading tools at Hornady.com.
How often do you see, now that you're the manager of all of the ranges that we have at Heartland Public Shooting Park, you get to see the trap, the skeet, the pistol, the action base.
Been dealing with it for years, but now I get, now it's my job as a volunteer. I'd tell somebody and they'd deal with it. That's kind of what we did as volunteer, because we're trying to sell an experience, right? So you don't want some volunteer getting yelled at or yelling at somebody. So now, we see it quite frequently on some of our stuff. USPSA 3-gun. I mean, that's all a lost brass match, so you don't have to worry about picking up after yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You go over and use the sporting clay, and you're running a semi-auto gun, and you're shooting true pairs. Pick up your hauls when you're done. I mean, it's a real simple task, because it just makes our day a lot easier.
Yeah,
as staff.
You run through your box of 25 shotgun shells. Don't just flatten it and leave it lay. Make sure there's
trash cans everywhere, man. We put them out there for.
I've never been to a shooting range of any kind, public, private, otherwise, that didn't have a plethora of trash receptacles.
I mean, that was just, for me,
brass
it
receptacles.
was just how you were raised. Like, you go to a place and you leave it better than how you found it. To me, that's I mean, that's kind of a overarching blanket statement, but man, just leave it better than you found it.
Well, that's, number 4, pick up after yourself, which we kind of related to, keeping things clean and organized, but like it goes back to the liability thing where, you need to be safe because we want these ranges in use. Well, it's not necessarily a liability thing or a safety concern, but if you want these ranges available to use, you need to take care of them, because if people show up and it's a pigsty, participation is going to go down, and that's the dollars out of the account of that range when people aren't using it. And as a guy that enjoys shooting, I enjoy shooting at a place that's clean, well kept, and I'm not saying things have to be manicured like I'm on a golf course, but when you see things in disrepair, if you see things that are straight up dirty, like it takes very little effort to make things not dirty, especially if you stay on top of it. And so if you're shooting, whether that be shotgun, pistol, rifle, anything, just pick up your own stuff and maybe help somebody else pick up their stuff. Again, I've never been to a shooting location where there wasn't trash cans, brass boxes, people wanting to save the brass. I mean, there's always a place to go with this stuff. So that's just seems like common sense, but Tom, like you mentioned, you see it every day, probably.
Yep.
Frustrating. This last one here, number 5, almost comical is not the right word, but it's another one of those. Well, well, what do you mean? And we talked about this before recording, but know your zero. When you go to the range and you're going to shoot, know your zero. And Tom, I'd like you to expand on that one a little bit.
You can't have a brand new gun show up and want to expect to shoot 300 or 600 yards. Like we have a spot for you to zero. Like we can figure the zero thing out, but you just can't show up, pull the gun out of the wrapper, out of the box, and slap a set of sights on it and expect it to hit at 600 yards. We got to know our zero, because people get upset with us when we tell them, "Hey, do you have dope to be able to shoot on the 3 or the 600?" Well, no. I mean, I just got this the first time I shot it. Well, let's start somewhere else. Let's start at 50 or 100 and go from there. Or we'll have the ones show up that want to shoot on the 100 and they want to shoot steel, and they show up and you don't know what you don't know. So we can't beat on them too much, and that's what we're here to do, is help them. But they show up and they get an AR out of the box and it doesn't even have a set of sights on it, and they want to show up and shoot steel at 100. Well, that doesn't work like that, bud. But
yeah, it seems so blatantly obvious, but you see it. And so if you're going, just know your zero. That is a safety concern. You could be shooting equipment. You could launch one over a berm.
We can skip one up over the top of a berm because we're hitting 100 yards short of the 600-yard target. So
just a bad way all the way around. And as it relates to Hornady, so Hornady, it's very well known in the late 50s, right around 1960 and slightly prior. Joyce Hornady built an underground testing facility. It's got a 100 and 200-yard test bay and a 25-yard test bay. Well, for many years, they were just giant tunnels with sand at the end. So yeah, you bounce one off of a wall. Probably not the end of the world. Well, not anymore. And now we've got, and this has been many, many years, but you've got a target system that has rollers and motors down at the end at the 100 and 200-yard side. And for the last almost decade or so, we've been using electric target reading equipment. So now you've got electronics and power cords and microphones down there. You can't be bouncing something off the wall because you've got very expensive equipment down there. And one, it's the cost of the equipment. Two, the downtime. If you were to not know your zero, go in and shoot at 100 yards thinking that you're going to just zero it at 100 and you'll find it on paper and move it around, and you end up hitting a microphone. One, it's the cost of the equipment and the downtime of the lab, because we are making bullets and we need that lab operational. So, if we have that 25-yard side, if you are even questioning your zero, bounce over to the 25-yard side, make sure you're inch low or whatever it is, then come back, shoot it at 100, shoot at 200. It just makes sense, because without it, I'll tell you, it can be a problem. Luckily, I don't think we've had any problems internally that I know of. But again, it's one of those things that is just simple. And I don't know, there's a lot of things. We could probably talk for a long time, but I feel like these 5 kind of cover things a little bit about, all right, make sure you check in with somebody. When you're handed a waiver that has rules written on it, actually read the rules and then follow them. And don't just follow them the first time you're there. The 1,000th time you're there, the 100th time you're there, those rules still apply, and help other people to follow those rules as well, so that we can have these public ranges to use. Number 3, don't be that guy. Be courteous, be respectful, be professional. And I found in my life, I'm sure you guys have seen this as well, when you are professional, when you are respectful, when you are courteous, it's rather contagious. When you hold yourself to a higher standard, usually the people around you do as well.
Yeah, so, those please and thank yous go a long way, especially a lot of the staff or the ROs and all that. They're volunteers. They're giving their free time to be at those ranges. And so the please and thank yous go a long, long ways.
Yep. So part of being that guy, we've all seen this in various sports, in pistol sports, 3-gun sports, long-range sports. Don't be that guy and hassle and haggle with an RO. If there's a genuine discrepancy, this happened, didn't see this, okay, be courteous, be respectful, and we'll get this sorted out. If you uncork on an RO, you dropped a lot of rungs on the respect ladder.
Yeah, for sure.
I've seen it at not every match I've been to, but I've seen it
a lot.
Yeah.
The Hornady Trek Light Lockbox XXL. Constructed of an advanced impact-resistant polycarbonate featuring dual 4-digit TSA locks, the Trek Light Lockbox offers heavy-duty protection at 1/3 of the weight of steel. The included 1,500-pound rated security cable with patented cable connector maximizes cargo space for up to 2 full-sized handguns. The Trek Lite Lockbox XXL from Hornady Security.
One time's too many, right? But yeah, we've all seen it. We've all experienced it or been around it when it's happened. So it's just one of those things. Again, for me, they're volunteers. Like I said, they're giving of their time. They might be monetarily compensated depending on the range, but man, most of the time they're there on their own goodwill. And so
one of the things that we like to do here at Hornady, your name, if you place well enough to get up there, on the prize table, donate your walk on the prize table to an RO. Because those guys, again, they're out there as volunteers. That could mean the world to them. Nobody got irate with them. Everyone was courteous. And then as a corollary, they got to walk the prize table and take something cool home after just dedicating, 16 to 20 hours for a 2-day match. That's pretty cool. So yeah, definitely take care of those guys and don't be that guy. Number 4, straight up pick up after yourself. Even if your mom's there, don't make your mom pick up for you. Yeah. Just pick up after yourself. And number 5, we had know your zero. So we're going to leave it at those 5, but I would encourage the listener out there, if you've got some more, some rules of the range that everybody should be following, please drop them in the comments because it could help somebody, it really could. Somebody reading the comments go, oh yeah, I didn't think of it like that. I should probably be doing that every time I go. So with that, I got a question. Matt, you've already answered the question. Tom, you haven't. Every person that sits in our guest chairs for their first time on the show, I ask them a question because the internet needs to know. So I'm going to paint a hypothetical for you.
Okay.
In this hypothetical, you can have an infinite amount of guns, infinite in every configuration available. And you can also have an infinite supply of ammunition. But for the rest of your life, if you had to choose one cartridge and one Hornady bullet to do all of your training, match shooting, competing, hunting, etc.
Just one?
If you had to pick one cartridge and one bullet. Again, you could have a variety of different rifle configurations, barrel lengths, suppressors, infinite amount of ammo. But if you had to pick one
cartridge.
Yeah, one cartridge, one bullet.
Oh, man.
That's a tough question, too.
It's a very tough question, and I'm probably going to go the opposite of where everybody else goes. I'm gonna stick with the 135 grain plus P, the critical duty
and 9mm.
Yep, because I've got a 9mm sub gun I can shoot that with, so I can still shoot 2-gun.
Okay.
But if I stick with like a 6.5 Creedmoor or something like that, then I only got my long range stuff. So I can still do pistol and I can still do 2-gun, with that 135 grain plus P.
That's a good load. Now, I'm going to, not to challenge your choice, because that's a fine choice, and I know in the shooting sports you do. In the hunting world, would you ever consider jumping up to our 175 grain 10mm, because that'd be a little bit more viable on the hunting side?
Oh, maybe, but once again, you've got way more recoil with that 10mm than you do that 9mm. And that 9mm, with the advancements and powders and projectiles, and the 9mm is viable again. It wasn't that way when I was in the Marine Corps. We had a 115 grain full metal jacket that would get stuck in screen doors. So
awesome. So 9mm critical duty, 135 grain. I have to say,
the plus P. Go with the plus P.
Nobody has said a pistol cartridge on this entire podcast. We've 120 plus episodes in. Nobody said a pistol cartridge that I can think of. Disregard. Mike Whitey Jensen.
Yep.
Mike Whitey Jensen. His was a huge revolver cartridge. I want to say the 454 Casull. And his reasoning was he loves to build wheel guns. So he's got these big paws, and so he can handle this big recoil revolvers. He loves to build those, but he'd build a lever action too.
See, I think which reloading manual was he on the cover of? I think that's what he had in that picture was a 454.
Likely. Yeah, probably number 4 or number 5.
It was very early on. I remember it was a red cover, and I still have that book. I'll have to find it. I'll have to get Mike to sign it.
Yeah, right. We all should get Mike to autograph something.
He should autograph the table or something for us, so we can all remember.
How many years has he been here now? 42 or 44
he's
or
past
something.
45.
Yeah, he's
45.
pushing 50.
Really?
So,
well, I'm not a mathematician, but I know he started in the mid-70s. So Yeah, just his words, not mine, just a long-haired punk kid at the time. I think he was 19 and been here a while. And so for the listener, hearing us banter back and forth, we've had Mike Whitey Jensen on the podcast several times, and he interviewed with Joyce Hornady himself. And he is a jack of all trades, a gentleman, a worldwide hunter, and a craftsman. If you need to carve a rifle stock out of wood, you need to pour concrete, you need to put windows in your house, build a deck, machine a bipod out of titanium, chamber a rifle barrel, or get a bullet press running, among many other things.
Make parts for a Toyota Land Cruiser, that guy's going to do it for you. So.
Or you want to race dirt bikes. And
yeah, he was really big into that.
Motocross.
So it was funny. I met him years and years ago because my secretary is his daughter.
Okay.
So yeah, I've known him long before I ever thought about coming to the Hornady company. So
well, this is unrelated to the podcast, but on the topic of Mike Whitey Jensen, you've heard this. I've said it on the podcast, but I started here in 2013, and when I was working in bullet production, learning how to make bullets, I was working with Whitey. I was coming back to work from lunch, and I was at a major intersection right by Hornady, probably one of the more major intersections in Grand Island. And I see Whitey riding a wheelie across the intersection on his KTM Enduro. And I was like, this guy did not expect to see that, but thought that was pretty cool. So, all right, guys. So 9mm to rule them all. That's your one and done.
I think so. I think if we look towards the zombie apocalypse, I think that's going to be the one.
Yeah.
I've saw him shoot a handgun before, and I think that would be that's a pretty viable option for him. So
awesome. Well, guys, I do appreciate you coming on the podcast, sharing some of these rules of the range, and again, would encourage the listener to drop some comments in there. Is there anything else that you want to say or leave the listener with in regard to using the public ranges available?
Use them. That's what they're there for. Mm-hmm. Cover the 5 things that we talked about. Make sure you follow all that, but use them. Otherwise, they go away, and then it's harder and harder to get folks into the shooting sports when we don't have those available to us.
Excellent.
Yeah. And if you can't think of that guy at the range, then more likely you might
be that guy. So. All right. So that 2 good points. And I guess something I was thinking about when you were answering, Tom, was I would encourage people to get involved on the volunteer side.
Absolutely.
It's like if you don't use the ranges, they'll go away. In a lot of cases, if you don't get that volunteer force activated, those ranges could go away too. Maybe not the ranges, but some of the
amenities.
The hosting of the events and the big matches. So get out there and get active at your local shooting range. Awesome, guys. Anything else?
No.
Appreciate you coming on the show. Everybody out there, I hope you enjoyed this podcast and took something away about our top 5 rules of the range. Now, some housekeeping stuff at the end of the podcast. It is the month of May, and that means the National Rifle Association annual meetings and convention, a big trade show this year in Dallas, Texas, towards the end of the month. And I would encourage you guys, if you're in the area or if you can get to Dallas, Texas, come out and see us. We'll have a full booth there. We'd love to see you. We'd love to interact with you. Let us know that you're listening and that you like the podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. We'll catch you on the next one.